General Alexander Dvornikov, a man with significant experience of operations in Syria, is thought to have taken over control of the invasion. At the outset of the war, President Putin was believed to have set himself 4 weeks to secure success in time for the Victory Day commemoration on May the 9th. It's a symbolic national day in Russia, marking the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany. We're joined now by Michael Clarke, former director of the Royal United Services Institute. Good morning to you. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear now. So, first of all, tell us about this change of leadership in the military operations. How significant is it?
Well, it's the Russians doing what they should have done on day one from a military point of view, which is have a single commander. It was astonishing to most of us that there was nobody in overall command. So they had 3 lines of attack, 3 separate campaigns going on, one north from Belarus into Kiev, one in the cities in the northeast, and one from Crimea in the south. And as each of those lines of attack ran into difficulties, they were competing with each other for resources, as always happens. And so Gerasimov, who is the chief of the general staff, seemed not to have any, we don't know what he thought, but he seemed not to have any obvious answers because nothing changed much in the first couple of weeks. And so now Dvornikov is now overall commander. That makes perfect sense militarily. It's astonishing that it's taken them, whatever it is now, 44 days to arrive at that point.
Much has been made about his past experience in Syria. Should we assume that things are going to get more bloody with someone with that kind of CV behind him?
Well, not necessarily, because all of the commanders who were involved in this operation also had Syria or Chechen experience. That was part of their careers. So he's no different to any of the other senior commanders in that respect. What's interesting, of course, is that everybody below the level of about colonel in the Russian forces have had no combat experience whatsoever. That's the point. The commanders have all been involved in Syria and Chechnya, but everybody up to the age of about 35 or 40 has never been in combat before. And it absolutely shows when you see the way they actually perform.
So tell us about Victory Day, May the 9th. Putin likes these symbolic days. He likes to time things for maximum effect. And should we assume he has it marked in his calendar as a day before which victory must be assured?
Yeah, he's very silly if he does. But on the other hand, Western intelligence, US and British intelligence, who have been right about everything else, literally everything else in this case, they are now saying that they think that, yes, he does regard this Victory Day parade as extremely important this year. And the point is, it isn't just it's classically the day when the Russians show off all their military hardware, because the war in Europe in 1945 ended on the 8th of May. So the 9th of May is their Victory Day in the Great Patriotic War. That happens every year. But in particular, of course, what the Great Patriotic War represents to the Russians is the victory over fascism, the victory over Nazism. And Putin is pushing this narrative very, very hard now that Ukraine itself is not just a Nazi leadership, but Ukraine is a completely Nazified society. This week, they've started to say that Estonia, of course, we all know, is a Nazified society. So is Latvia. They're using this phrase, the Nazification, as if the whole of Russia is now surrounded by Nazis. And so, Putin's narrative to his own people is that Russia is once again fighting for its life against the forces of global fascism, in this case led by the United States. It's all dangerous stuff. And although it's militarily stupid to try to push for some sort of military victory before the 9th of May. And I think that's what they are doing. And they're pushing with forces that are not reinforced yet. I mean, he's about to send an army that's been beaten once in the north round the outside of the country to reinvade it in the Donbass. And those forces that have been beaten 2 or 3 weeks ago are going to have to fight again against even better forces of the Ukrainians. So it's a really stupid thing to do militarily. But politically, it really matters to him, it seems, that he keeps up this narrative that Russia is fighting against fascism, as it did in the 1940s.
And is it a narrative that ordinary Russians are swallowing and believing? I mean, we know that from the villages that were left after a Russian invasion around Kyiv, we know that when soldiers came, they seemed to be very much believing that they were liberating the people there until they were disabused of that fact. Are Russians buying it?
Yeah, it's not surprising that the conscripts and the soldiers buy this line, because they have to have a clear sense in their own mind of what they're fighting for, even if they're confused about the higher levels of it. Russian population, we don't know, but what we are aware of is that the Russian population is getting behind the war. as always happens in wartime. It's very hard if your own troops are fighting for whatever reason abroad, not to want to see them do well or at least survive. Putin's own approval ratings seem to be high. The elite have got nowhere else to go other than to back him, because they're all sort of riding the back of a tiger in this case. I suspect that those levels of support are probably very brittle, because it's almost impossible now to find an avenue not to express support. So the support is high. Whether it's high because people really believe in the anti-Nazi rhetoric is very hard to tell. They kind of say that they do, but you wonder. Material filters through. People are not stupid. That there is a sense in which, as things go on, doubts will presumably start to creep in. And what you imagine is that public opinion might swing like a great pendulum at some time in the next few months, or maybe early next year, if the war is still going on by then, which it well may be.
Michael Clarke, former director of the Royal United Services Institute. Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much.